Five Heartbeats was my second movie as a filmmaker. But the journey started when I was a kid, and my favorite group in the 60s broke up, The Temptations, with my favorite singer, David Ruffin. It became my quest as a fan to answer one question: why did they break up? That started a roller coaster ride to get this movie made, and it wasn't easy. I got the scars to prove it. What happened stayed with me years later. I'm a young actor in Chicago doing extra work on the movie Mahogany with Diana Ross and Billy Dee Williams. I picked up my first 8mm camera as a kid, and I filmed everything. Watching Billy Dee do his lines, and then the head of Motown, Berry Gordy, directing the movie. I studied him closely directing Diana Ross. But I only had one question in my head: why did the Temptations break up? That's what I really wanted to know. I even hung outside Mrs. Ross's limo to ask her. But she didn't roll the window down, and I was cold outside, so I just left. Then Smokey Robinson showed up on the set, and I started stalking him. Maybe he could tell me what happened. But I got shy when I got near him. Then I finally got to Miss Ross, but I was too nervous to ask her, so I just stood there smiling, looking stupid. Then later, she was talking with Smokey. It was the perfect time to ask both of them. But Smokey looked at me with them light eyes like he was gonna call security on me. So I got out of there. Anyway, fast forward to Hollywood. There would be no Five Heartbeats without a little film called Hollywood Shuffle, partially financed with a credit card that made me part legend in Hollywood. I starred in it, directed it, and co-wrote the film with a young Keenen Ivory Wayans. Keenen and I started talking about various ideas, but there was only one story I wanted to tell: what happened to the Temptations? Why did they break up? So I say to Keenen, we should do a story about a group like the Temptations. We write it, we act in it, and I'll direct it.
I'm almost 100% sure it was Robert's idea because of all the musical element and the stage element. That just wasn't me at the time. And Rob had done Broadway, and so he had a bigger scope in terms of ideas. But when he talked to me about us doing it, it was exciting and it was cool. And what I remember most about Five Heartbeats was the fact that we wanted to do something special. Like, we were 100% committed to learning and growing more as writers so that we could do justice to the piece.
I had gotten a deal with Warner Brothers, and we went in and pitched it to them. The story of a singing group in the 60s. 5 different types of guys who are tied together because of music. The movie will be funny and dramatic and filled with music that will have the audience dancing in their seats. This movie is going to be a classic. They loved the pitch, and in the room, we made a deal. I knew I needed to interview David Ruffin, my idol, and maybe Eddie Kendricks, and have them as technical advisors. I went to meet him. David was performing at a small club. He had a drink in his hand and didn't look good. I could tell he was using drugs. But I looked the other way. It was David Ruffin. Keenen and I had already agreed that when the movie is officially green-lit, we have to figure out how to help him get into rehab and help pay for it. Keenen and I go to work on the script. We act out all the characters. We were both so passionate as writers that we fought over every syllable and verb, tweaking characters, storylines. But our real Trojan horse hidden agenda was to give Hollywood a new image of black men, because all the images we were seeing at the time were negative: pimps, thugs, hustlers, killers.
I don't think we ever stopped writing. I would say that we kept layering, so we'd have it was a skeleton that we kept building on.
Finally, we were ready for the next step. Keenen and I were so happy with the script that we thought we would call actors and do a table read with our dream cast. I was playing the part of Duck. Keenan was going to play JT. David Allen Greer was going to play Dresser. Vanessa L. Williams was going to play his girlfriend. Bobby McGee and Damon Wayans were going to play our cousins, Leon and Lester. I saw this actor doing Macbeth, and I knew he would be perfect to play the menacing record executive, Big Red Davis, Hawthorne James.
And the stories about the credit cards and all that stuff, and you come to me and ask me to be in a movie? Give a damn what it was. It's just Robert Townsend asked me to be in a movie. I'm gonna be in this movie. Hell to the yeah.
Comedian Ronaldo Ray
Welcome to the stage, the Three Bridges!
would be the MC of the Apollo. And the legendary Robin Harris would be the MC of Little J's nightclub, where the 5 Heartbeats would be discovered. And I had my eye on Denzel Washington to play Eddie King Jr. Denzel and I had done one movie together already, A Soldier Story. We went to work rehearsing every scene. Also, I had started to work with a young cinematographer that understood my ultimate mission, to make a classic. His name is Bill Deal. He had that same work ethic that I have, a driven desire for excellence, that thing you have as a person of color to represent that you belong in the room, but not because you are black, but because you can do the job. I love Bill. So he worked with me blocking and shooting every scene. Keenan and I continued to refine that script in rehearsal. I got a storyboard artist and we storyboarded every frame. Then we would rehearse more scenes, blocking and shooting. I even created my own production Bible, a production map to save production time and money. We got into a serious rhythm, rehearsals, storyboards, Townsend Bible, rehearsal, storyboards, blocking, the Townsend Bible. Keenan might be known for his comedy spoofs and $100 million scary movie franchise, but he gave the movie a beautiful heart with his tender touch. After weeks of rehearsal, Keenan and I locked the final script. It was good. No. It was great. We were excited, nervous, giddy as we delivered the screenplay of the 5 Heartbeats to Warner Brothers. Our agents were like, they're excited about the script, and it's all been approved. They're gonna read it quick, and in probably 2 weeks, you'll be going into production. 4 days later, there's an urgent call from my agent, and he needs to talk to us right away. Keenan and I get on the phone excited, we joke around. You are now talking to 2 Oscar-winning homeboys. Keenan laughs, I laugh. The agent doesn't laugh. There's a long, pregnant pause on the phone. Then the agent says, they passed on the script. Then I said, what do you mean they passed on the script? The agent, with his best bedside manner, tries to let us down gently. They don't think the story works. They don't think there's an audience for this type of movie. They don't know how you're going to direct it and make it funny and dramatic. Keenan and I are in shock. We couldn't believe it. All the studios had passed on the script. I felt like such a failure. All the promise of Robert Townsend from Hollywood Shuffle, and I couldn't get this movie made. It was my first real Hollywood lesson. Nothing is a sure shot. So I work on other projects while feeling like I'm in development hell with my movie. I was acting in films, but I couldn't get this baby born, the 5 Heartbeats. And the years were going by. 1988, 1989, 1990. Then Keenan unknowingly delivers the next blow. I can't wait on the 5 Heartbeats no more. I need to make some money. You're off acting in other projects, and I need to make some money too. And I just wanted to let you know I sold a pilot to 20th Century Fox, a sketch comedy show. My heart paused for a second, and I was happy and sad. Happy for my boy spreading his wings, black man to black man, yes. And sad to lose my creative friend that I trusted with my life.
I don't know that it was a separation because we weren't necessarily a team. We were both just really good friends who created together, who had ideas that worked. And then, you know, our careers just kind of took us in separate directions. It's like...
Keenan is one of the best people I know, so I said, go for it, man. I totally understand. Do your thing. This movie is taking forever. Good luck, my brother. We hugged each other and gave each other a pound, and I asked, what's it gonna be called? And he said, In Living Color. Who knew? Without Keenan, I really had to ask myself some tough questions. Was the script really good? Did I have a classic? Or was I fooling myself? I signed with new managers, Mora, Bresner, and Steinberg. At that time, they were one of the biggest management firms in Hollywood. They had everybody, Robin Williams, Billy Crystal, Martin Short. The first thing I did was to give them a copy of the script. They read it quick. And then they called me into their office. Larry said, "We read your script." He started shaking his head with disappointment. "We can't believe you and Keenan wrote this." And then they started laughing. "Because we love this script." They made a few phone calls, and the next thing you know, I was sitting in front of the head of 20th Century Fox at the time, Joe Roth. Joe Roth is a warm and charming man with integrity written across his face. He really loved the script and wanted to hear my take, my sense of storytelling to make this movie. I went into that meeting with him with all my passion and everything. Storyboards, music ideas, Townsend Bible, casting ideas. I was on fire. And after that meeting, Joe greenlit the 5 Heartbeats. Oh my God. I wanted to cry, scream, shout, but there was no time for that. Because once you get a green light, everything moves fast. And I mean very fast. They broke down the script and I was given a budget. I went from Hollywood Shuffle that was done for peanuts to a budget of $8.7 million. And with that, everybody went to work. I went back to the studio and said, I forgot to tell you, I have 2 of the best technical advisors to work on the film. I got David Ruffin and Eddie Kendricks from The Temptations, and they said, no. And I said, no. And they said, if you use David and Eddie, everyone will think this is the Motown story, and we could get sued if Berry Gordy looks at the Big Red character and thinks it's about him. I didn't think about that. It was my love for the Temptations that started this journey in the first place. And now I couldn't work with him. I understood the studio's position, but it still didn't feel good. They asked me who else I would like to be technical advisors. I thought about it long and hard, and one of the groups that truly lifted me as a kid was the Dells. And they loved the idea. As luck would have it, the Dells were in Los Angeles doing a concert at the Wiltern Theater, and I went to meet with the Dells. I reached out to them and headed down. When I got to the theater, their road manager met me at the backstage door. As I walked into their dressing room, they were all in white bathrobes sitting in front of their makeup mirrors, grooming, getting ready for the show. They all said hello, and I started to ask them questions. I'm not the best reporter. The interview got off to a bad start because of my first question. As I did my research on the Dells, I looked at all their press clippings that I could find and studied their albums. Their first album cover was what puzzled me. On the front was a large photo of a white couple looking so much in love by the water. So my first question was, why didn't you get to be on the front cover of your album? Then in the mirror, I could see their eyes shift down with this memory and disgust. I knew I'd put my foot in my mouth. And then somebody mumbled, "That's what the record company thought was the best thing to do." And then someone said that the record company said it would help the album sell if white people didn't see our faces on the front. And then they just told me the truth. We got into a big fight over the album cover because they told us it would help us cross over. Then someone said, "Why don't they ever cross over to us? All the white boys that sound like niggas are making all the money." As I listened to their real talk, I knew I had to rewrite the script and add this new scene about crossing over. The Dells became my technical advisors, and they gave me pure gold as they shared their show business journey. I started casting the film with my casting director, Jackie Brown. She knew about my casting wish list, but she had other casting ideas as well. After 3 years of waiting, a lot of things had changed. A lot of my cast went to In Living Color with Keenan, so I had to start over, and this time I wanted to cast the movie in a different way. One of my favorite directors is Elia Kazan. He directed classic movies like On the Waterfront with Marlon Brando. I read in a book that he never auditioned actors. He would interview them and get to know them and then cast them. And that's what I decided to do. At first, Jackie looked at me like I was crazy. But she knew I was trying to do something really special with this movie. So she agreed to my madness. I did the regular casting process for the studio, but I also did 3 big open casting calls for me to see if I could find talented actors from the hood. And they agreed, and my casting journey began. My first open call was in New York City. I had lines around the block looking at thousands of up-and-coming actors. There was an actor that I had seen in Woody King Jr.'s off-Broadway production of the Mahalia Jackson story. He played her husband. He had a charisma that was perfect for the silver screen. His name was Chuck Patterson, and I cast him as the manager, Jimmy Potter. Then I decided to really roll the dice and go after a big fish that would help with the box office and maybe give our soundtrack a Grammy. I reached out to one of the biggest singing stars at the time, Whitney Houston. She agreed to meet with me. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and her father was managing her. He had an office near 57th Street and 5th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. When I got to the office, her father opened the door. He was a classy man, and he knew how to dress standing there in a fitted, stylish cream suit. He seemed excited to meet me, and then a few moments later, she walked in, looking like a princess with grace and style, Whitney Houston. She was the darling of the music industry at that time, and she also wanted to act. So I gave them my best pitch. The character of Baby Doll is the girlfriend of the lead singer of the group, Eddie King Jr. She gets to sing 2 songs in the movie, maybe 3. One is a gospel song at the end, and you could get nominated for an Oscar and a Grammy. They both looked impressed as I pitched my heart out. Then I handed them the script, and she gave me a big, warm hug. And her father shook my hand firmly with an impressed smile on his face. And then he said, "We will read it and get back to you quickly. I promise." I left there feeling good. I headed back to the open call. More actors. And more actors. Some little baby actors online, including Jurnee Smollett and her Empire-starring brother.
I didn't take nothing.
Wow, to see them now talk about determination.
Hey, I'm Cynthia Bailey.
And how tall are you?
Hi, I'm Stacey Francis.
Stacey Francis, okay. Alan Beck. And this is
How tall are you?
And then this actor shows up at the open call, and Jackie and I look to each other, and I lock in on him. His name is Tico Wells. Something about him inspired me to play, and we do a 10-minute improv. Singing, dancing, acting. After the improv was over with, I look over at Jackie and I say, "That's Choir Boy." She says, "Wait until you see all the talent first." But I knew he was Choir Boy because I was being driven by pure instinct.
Had me come up on stage, and you were just running around. Oh, okay. You're gonna be you're a drug addict and something's happened. Okay, boom. Okay, now you're in the church. You're in the church. You're doing blah, blah, blah. Boom. Okay, now we're gonna sing this song. Boom. Okay, and you were just flying through different things, and I was just like going with whatever you said, and then you turned to Jackie Brown. He said, put him down for a choir boy. He'd be good for choir boy. Oh man, thanks for meeting. Boom. Good to meet you, brother. Boom, and I was gone.
There was only one person I had in mind to play Eleanor Potter, the wife of the manager of the group, and that was Diane Carroll. Miss Carroll agreed to meet with me over drinks at the Plaza Hotel. I was beyond excited to meet her. I felt like a little boy. I got there early, and when she arrived, I knew I was in the presence of Hollywood royalty. And then, in her charming way, she drilled me hard about everything. How do you like to work? What's your view of my character? And potentially, how could you expand the layers of this character, of this woman? I love the creative talk, and she did too. By the time the meeting was over, she said yes. I got Diane Carroll in my movie. Yes! After I left her, I had a late-night meeting. Jackie was telling me about this actor that I had to meet for the part of Eddie King Jr. And I said, you know I want Denzel for that part. And she says, yeah, I know, but you might not be able to afford him. He's starting to get big paydays and your budget is tight. Robert, just do me this favor. And I said, okay. I was aware of Michael Wright. He was in the Robert Altman film Streamers with David Alan Grier. But I took Jackie's advice and I met with Michael. He lived off 9th Avenue and 42nd Street in a 4-story walk-up. As I walked up the stairs, I didn't know what to expect. Michael opened the door, smoothly dressed in all black satin shirt. There was something about him that was dangerous, wild, but vulnerable and open. His apartment was dark and filled with classy pieces of art. He had amazing taste, and then we started to talk about the art of acting. He had studied with one of the biggest acting teachers ever, Lee Strasberg. And then Michael said, I want to show you something, and put a videotape in his VHS machine. It was an indie film he had done, and he wanted to show me a few scenes. As I watched this performance, it was mesmerizing, brilliant. He got me. Bye-bye, Denzel. Michael Wright will be Eddie King Jr.
You were writing the character for a very well-known actor, Academy Award winner, I think. and you mentioned to me that, well, you know, I'm writing this role for this actor, but Mike, I had, and in all due humility, you said that you hadn't quite seen film acting like that before, and that you had, again, this other actor in mind for that character, but that in some due course you intended to start working on this film. And you said, well, I'll be in touch with you in 6 months. And I said, right. Right. Lo and behold, though, 6 months went by, and I did indeed hear from you.
Jackie and I jumped on a plane to Chicago to our next casting call at the Regal Theater. We see thousands of would-be actors. I don't know what I'm looking for. Maybe that rare, unique talent that you find once in a blue moon. That talented needle in the haystack. I see actors. Then a singing group auditions. The lead singer really has something. But where would he fit? I had choir boy. I had Eddie. Could he be Dresser? Could he be JT? I didn't know. But there was something about that lead singer. I called him back into the room again. I kept him in my mind. I didn't know what to do with him. Years later, people would come to know him as R. Kelly, R&B superstar, and now infamous icon. Then I have a meeting with a rising actor in the Chicago theater scene. We talk about theater, the acting craft. He's doing a play at the time called The Meeting, about a meeting between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. He's working with one of my first directors in Chicago, Chuck Smith. I love how he thinks and his respect for the craft. My instincts kick in again. I look at Jackie. She says, "Robert, wait until you see everybody." I smile. He's Dresser. Harry J. Lennox will be Terrence Dresser Williams.
I was teaching school. I was a full-time school teacher. But I had an audition, I think at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so my principal, the late, great Mrs. Marcella Gilly, who you met, gave me a half day, and I rushed down, and we chatted. I don't think I didn't even read any material. We just had a conversation. You're like, "Oh, you're a school teacher?" I was like, "Yeah, I took a half day." And the next thing I know, like 3 or 4 weeks later, maybe a couple months later, I got a call that said that, you know, I was cast in the 5 Heartbeats, and I was over the moon.
Back to the open casting call. I see actors. Have you ever acted before? And then this little girl catches my attention. After her audition, she asks if she can sing for me. I say yes, thinking to myself, I'll listen to a few bars of her singing and politely say thank you. She's a kid. It took a lot of courage just to ask if she could sing for me. I respect her hustle, and then she sings. She didn't get through just a few bars. She sang the entire song. After she finished singing, I felt truly inspired. I mean, really inspired. I got so excited I went back to the hotel that night and I wrote a scene for her. My character Duck would have a problem trying to write a song, and my little sister, like a throwaway in the background, would help him write the song and still the scene with her surprise vocals. We are exhausted. Jackie and I have seen close to 4,000 actors between New York and Chicago, so we go right into the last casting call in Los Angeles. We do it at the big church on Highland and Franklin in Hollywood. Thousands come out, creating lines around the block. Actors. 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 Future television star Dorian Wilson.
My name is Dorian Wilson.
Actors. More actors.
I can be shorter if you want me to. Thin, but I can be fat. Just give me a donut. You know, I need a job.
I see future television star Niecy Nash. She's got something. But where do I put her?
5 feet without my good boots on. And I can hold the tune, but mostly I dance.
Jackie sets up interviews with the top up-and-coming talent in L.A.
It's stuck to the 5 Heartbeats.
I meet with Don Cheadle. He's an amazing actor, but not quite what I saw for the character of J.T. But he could be choir boy. Jackie gets very excited and tells me she's found the perfect person to play the tough old choreographer named Sarge. She sets up a meeting, and in walks the Hollywood silver screen dancing legend Harold Nicholas, one half of the legendary Nicholas brothers. As I was talking with him, I couldn't feel any edge. He was too nice. When I asked him about racism in the 50s, he talked about living in Paris. When I asked him about the stereotypical roles of black actors back then, he simply celebrated them. He played everything close to the vest. As we continued to talk, I couldn't feel his edge. He was too soft. The character of Sarge was in your face and tough as nails. He just wasn't Sarge. The interview was about over, and I simply made a joke about doing his life story and that I would play him. And then he turned. He looked at me with an attitude and disdain, and then he growled at me, "Nobody plays me. I play me. Dancing is a real art form. You can't master what I do overnight." As he went on his tirade, I smiled to myself. Then I looked at Jackie. "This is my Sarge." I started to meet with other actors, and Jackie said, "You've got to meet this one actor. He's perfect to play your brother. He's getting a lot of heat right now because he played the Black Jesus figure in the Madonna video, Like a Prayer." I didn't know Leon at the time, but when he came into the interview, I liked his style, his swag. I could tell he had what I needed for the character of JT, a cool, smooth ladies' man.
I didn't really audition for the Five Heartbeats. Robert Townsend had gotten a hold of me and was interested in me in this movie. I didn't know anything about it. And Robert took me outside and talked to me for a while, you know. And he started talking to me in a way in which no one had ever talked to me before in Hollywood. You know, he said, "You know, I see you as a matinee idol. Somebody that, you know, that when it, just like they have with white actors, you know, somebody that women just want to come see no matter what the movie is. They come to see you."
I looked at Jackie with a smile. She was right again. Leon was perfect. He would play J.T. Matthews, my brother. Now that I had cast the 5 main guys, I filled in the rest of the cast with actors that I met at the interviews and with my Hollywood shuffle players. Then Jackie comes in with some bad news. She says, "We tried. We were this close. But it's not gonna work. Whitney Houston's out. She loves you, but her agent thinks the role is too small and not flashy enough. What do you want to do?" And I didn't have a backup plan. Then Jackie says, "What about Troy Byer? You saw her in New York. You said you liked her energy. She would be perfect." We called Troy, and at the time, I had a building on Hollywood Boulevard that was my studio, and Michael had just gotten in town. So the 3 of us got together, and I had them do a 2-hour improv around their relationship. I saw something watching Troy work. She was absolutely brilliant. She tapped into a love and care for the character of Eddie King Jr. that I hadn't imagined. I just looked at her and said, "Welcome, baby doll." With my cast locked, I went into rehearsals, acting rehearsals, talking through character arcs, adding layers to the character. Bill Dill was right next to me every step of the way, videotaping every camera angle, looking for potential problems.
Well, the rehearsal process for the Five Heartbeats was something that I had never experienced before. I hadn't done a movie like that where it required that much rehearsal, singing and dancing. And so it was like working out every day. It's like going to the gym. You know, you come in there in your sweats, in your sneakers, you change into your dress shoes, and you start going through routines. You start going through dances.
I remember the process for rehearsals was very heady because I met Michael Peters there, and we all knew who Michael Peters was. He was doing all those Michael Jackson videos, and he was genius. And of course, he was rigorous. And I remember trying to learn the steps because I was never much of a dancer. I went to Northwestern University as an esteemed theater school, musical theater in particular. And I tried out for just about every musical in my first year. And they told me to stick to Shakespeare.
Then I created weekly talent shows so that we could get used to performing on stage. And we would battle. The Five Heartbeats versus Bird and the Midnight Falcons, Flash and the Ebony Sparks versus the Five Heartbeats, and we went at it.
We were all eager audiences, and I believe that you got the immediate feedback from the audience like you would. Some performers were better than others, like there would be. But it gave us motivation. It gave us a sense of what it was we were going to be doing. So that sort of lined up with my method acting techniques at the time.
It was really the battle of the bands. We sang songs from the Temptations, the Miracles, the Dales.
Get ready, because here I come. I think we did something like that. I don't know, we just needed the practice of being together. And we developed that in the first month, in February, of just being together, going to rehearsals.
The Five Heartbeats won the first talent show, and then we lost the second talent show because I didn't have time to rehearse with the guys. I was off scouting locations, and when I got back, they let me have it. Especially Michael. Rob, you gotta be here, man. You making us look bad. Then Leon jumped in. You don't know the steps, you messing up our choreography. They were right. I was being stretched, actor, director, writer, rewriting the script, scouting locations, music producer, trying to find original songs that sounded like they were from the 60s. And we really needed music now to rehearse to. At the last talent show, I was painfully reminded that some of the actors couldn't sing. And now it was time to find singers to sing for them. I had the sound of the movie in my head. I knew what I wanted each group to sound like, what I wanted each musical number to feel like. My music producers, George Duke and Steve Terrell, plus music whiz kid John McClain, started sending me original songs. If you build it, they will truly come. Everything was clicking. The songs started to come in. I was listening to hundreds of songs. I was trying to find songs with the right lyrics as well as the right groove. I wasn't finding anything that really excited me, but then they sent me a song from this new songwriter named Tina Clark. It was perfect for the scene with my little sister. I loved the song, and we went into the studio right away. It was my first time in a recording studio, but I knew the feeling I wanted from the song and the visuals that I was going to shoot to it. I was a madman in that studio as I directed Tressa's vocals. I think I was driving Tina crazy, and she didn't know what to make of me dancing around, being a wild man in the studio, never settling for anything. But by the end of that 12-hour session, I knew she felt it was a beautiful collaboration, and I couldn't wait to shoot the scene. Then I went into the studio with Terrell and Duke, and we recorded all the songs, and they made them hot. And I was happy with all the music for the film. I pray on everything, and I knew that this movie would challenge me like none other. I really needed the blessings of the big man upstairs. So the Sunday before shooting was to begin, I asked all the guys to go to church with me. I was attending West Angeles Church of God in Christ with Bishop Charles Blake. Everybody was right on time, and I think 20 of us sat in the 6th row center, and when they asked if there were any first-time visitors, a row of 19 men stood up. This really felt good to my spirit, to see this army that I had put together. I didn't know what the congregation was thinking, seeing all these well-dressed, handsome men. Maybe some of the single women were thinking that God had answered their prayers for a husband that Sunday. I remember Bishop Blake preached his heart out that Sunday. The sermon was about something like the character of a man. It was perfect. I was so happy I named the minister in the film after him. Monday we started shooting. And this is where it gets tricky. We had to shoot the whole movie in reverse because of hair. I didn't want to have to deal with wigs and fake mustaches, so everyone agreed we would shoot in reverse. During rehearsal, I asked all the guys to let their hair grow as long as possible, as well as any facial hair. Then the heads of the hair department, Ron and Frank, worked overtime on each look. One of the hardest things for me as a director now was to try and capture the emotion of the scenes with the actors based on scenes we hadn't done. Oh my God, what a dance. But I was ready. One of the first scenes we shot was the church scene, where Duck sees Eddie for the first time cleaned up. Michael was tour de force. He played it with such pain and remorse. As a director, I would always whisper in his ear, less is more. We're painting with a fine brush. I get great news from the studio. They love the dailies. Joe's happy, the executives are happy.
Robert, these dailies are impressive. They're great, Robert, they're great. But But as we're looking at the schedule, do you really need that scene with you and your little sister? Yeah, you should think about cutting it. I don't know why we need it. Just think about it.
I know he was just doing his job, but I love that scene, and I wasn't going to cut it, but I played nice. Shooting was going great. I was getting some incredible performances out of everybody. Because the story took place in the 60s, I forgot that I was going to have my hair styled and processed every day. So I directed half the movie from under the dryer. Meetings under the dryer. More meetings. I even practiced my dance steps with Michael Peters' right-hand man, Edgar, from under the dryer. While we were filming, all kind of stars were dropping by the set. Superstar songwriter Lamont Dozier of Holland Dozier Holland, one of the most successful songwriting teams in Motown history. They gave Diana Ross and the Supremes their sound. We used 2 songs of his classics in the film. My idol Glenn Turman dropped by. I did my first movie with him, Cooley High. Diane Carroll's old friend, music legend Lou Rawls, dropped by the set. And then one of my heroes, Maverick director Robert Altman, dropped by the set. It was cool meeting him, and then he pulled me to the side. He asked if Michael was behaving himself because he had directed him in a film called Streamers. Michael's a rare talent. Just watch him. He's extremely passionate and can get in his own way. He may challenge you. I took note and we remained friends for years. And then Denzel dropped by the set. I was happy to see him and glad that there was no bad blood because I went with Michael. He was really cool about it, and he was up for a supporting Oscar for his work in the film Glory. I'm feeling really good, but Bill Dill starts to push me hard. I'm seeking perfection and he's seeking it more. He drives his team hard, and he's driving me harder. So I start to push even more. I started out wanting to create a classic, and now, years later, I'm actually doing it, and I can feel it. I want the scene with Big Red and Bird to be more violent. Bird almost gets injured, and he gives me an earful.
You okay? He hit me this time for real. And no more fingernails. We gotta work something under here, because I use this in my other stuff.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Even in here, but you know, cause
okay.
The hit was cool. I went with it because he told me to. But this stuff with the hands gets a little.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
All right. Okay.
So help me out here, because he's ready for like the Academy Award. I want his eyes out red, and he taking.
Then the rip-apart suit scene turned into a nightmare. Cost me time and money.
Take the damn things off. Why don't we try one? We take our own off. No, man. It's just simple enough, you know, people to take their own clothes, take these things off each other. Yeah, man. Come on.
It's really simple.
Yeah.
It's just a breakaway suit. This is an easy concept.
I start to get drunk with power, painting slow with my fine brush. In a second, I'm behind schedule, and the studio starts to send little messages to pick up the pace. Also, the reason we start to get behind is because I can't dance. It was beautiful. The guys even stayed behind after filming to help me get the steps. I get another note from that executive at the studio. Once again, he reiterates.
Now that you're behind schedule, cut that scene with the little sister.
But I'm not trying to hear that. I'm going to shoot that scene, and I even practice with Tressa on my lunch break. I'm feeling good. Then I get pulled to the side by the cops on the set. Mr. Townsend, we need to talk to you about your cast. They've been finding condoms in the trailers, and we've been smelling marijuana on your set. We like you, Mr. Townsend, but we will shut your set down and arrest the guilty parties. This is a warning, so please talk to your cast. I have an emergency meeting with the cast. I told them what the cops told me, and whoever is doing it, cut it out. They all deny it, of course. It's Thursday. And we're shooting the scene where Eddie shows up drunk and confronts Flash about taking his spot. Michael is a method actor, and he's committed fully to being drunk and crazy in the scene. As I watched the scene, I discovered that it was overwritten and that Eddie didn't need to do a full monologue to Flash. The actor playing Flash, John Terrell, felt the same way. He pulled me to the side. "Rob, he can't just be in my face like that. As a man, I wouldn't take it." I said I totally understand and went over to talk to Mike. I say to Michael, I said, "We should cut some of the lines." Michael is lost in his drunk character and says, "I ain't changing nothing, baby." But he said it with a little bit more colorful language. I started thinking about my favorite director, Kazan. In his movie East of Eden, he pitted the actors against each other to get amazing performances. So that's what I did. I know it was bad, but there was so much raw electricity going on between the two of them. I just wanted to see what would happen. We do the next take and Michael pushes it even harder. I love it. But then John signals for me to come over. "Rob, Mike ain't listening. He's getting all in my face, and I ain't playing with his ass. I got a black belt in karate, and I will kick his ass." I pretend to be upset. Let me go talk to Mike. I don't know what's going on with him." Then I go over to Michael and I say, "Keep doing it. Oh, it's beautiful. Keep doing it."
I was extremely angry with John that day, so as my acting teachers often would tell me, if there's something bugging you, you just put it in the work.
John's instincts took over, and he slams the door in Michael's face, and Michael said the rest of his lines to the door. And that was the take I used in the film. I got it, but afterwards I wasn't too happy about the way that I got it. Then I look over the set, and I see the executives from Fox, and they have with them a gentleman that I've never seen before. He looks like a CEO in his 40s, silver gray hair, and then they wave me over and introduce me to him. He's the guy from the bond company. The guy that comes in when you are officially in trouble. And I was. His job was to make sure I didn't spend any more money. They made it clear that he was going to be on my set until filming wrapped. The executives handed me a list of scenes to cut to help production get back on schedule. On the top of the list was the scene with my little sister. Oh God, here we go. So we went into the corner of the set and I negotiated my butt off. Yes, I'll cut that scene. Yes, I'll cut that scene. And that scene. Just let me keep the scene with my little sister. The executive decided to play nice. So he said, "You can keep the sister scene, but you have to shoot it in 4 hours at the end of the day and not a minute over. We're pulling the plug." And I said, "Thank you." And then to myself, I said, 4 hours, really? This is a musical number. But I agreed to it to keep the scene. That evening, as I was directing in the middle of all this madness, the rest of the cast was in their trailers watching Denzel win his first Oscar.
I'm going to thank Ed Zwick, Freddie Fields, who did a fantastic job.
Once again, doubt creeps back in. Did I make a mistake casting Michael, even though he was giving me a tour de force performance? Even his ad-libs were dangerous.
Yes. Look, Mom, look, Pops. Yes. I am shit.
The day comes to shoot the scene with my little sister. And I gotta say this. I will always love Bill Dill because on this day, he knew how important this scene was to me, and he moved like lightning. As I raced to find the pieces of paper in the scene, I was really racing against a 4-hour time limit. The crew even applauded after each take. We finished the whole scene in less than 4 hours. The next morning, we were shooting the scene in the diner where Jimmy asked to be our manager. I was laying out my first setup with Bill when I saw my editor standing there with a concerned look on his face trying to catch my eye. What was he doing here? He should be in the editing room. And standing behind him was the bond company guy. This wasn't good. So I walked over. The editor said, "We have a problem with the musical number, I Got Nothing But Love for You. 3 close-ups of Leon were ruined because Michael's hand was blocking Leon's face. And it looks like it's on purpose." Then the bond company guy jumped in and said, "There's no money for reshoots. I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to live with it." Then I go look at the footage, and it's ruined. As we were shooting, I had noticed that the guys started competing with each other because of the beautiful women on the set. Then I thought, was this a result of that competition between the two of them that now ruined my shots? I was livid. I started to lose it. Michael is one of the smartest actors I know, and he knew lenses better than me back then. I marched right over and confronted Michael. "Did you ruin Leon's close-ups on purpose?" Michael gets indignant and tries to be a smartass. "I don't know what you're talking about. My hand just landed there when I was dancing, right in Leon's face." Then Michael starts to put on a show for the crew, and it gets heated. He starts yelling at me, and I start yelling at him. All of this right in front of the bond company guy. Michael was so enraged that he punched the wall with all his might. And I said, "Was that wall supposed to represent me? Because when this shoot is over with, we can go into a room with no furniture in it and get it on."
You thought that, well, Mike, you're like the best film actor I know, I mean, I know you know what you were doing.
Mike is, very serious and also very sensitive, about his acting and everything else. And so Robert being upset with him didn't go over well. We had a little bit of an emotional breakdown on the set.
Harry broke the tension by putting everything in perspective. "This brother is hurting over here, and this brother is hurting over here. This is exactly what they expect from us. This movie is bigger than all of us. We can't fail. We won't fail. This had to happen so we could get stronger. Rob, you said you wanted to know what happened to those singing groups. It's stuff like this." Harry spoke from the bottom of his heart and really had us listening. Maybe because he looked like Malcolm X in his glasses. And it was like Malcolm was talking to us. It was beautiful. After he finished, we all hugged in one big circle, even the women. The crew came back in and we finished our day on time. After that, we all jailed, and we just started to have fun. Fun, pure fun. The bond company guy was even smiling, and I even gave him a cameo in the film as a still photographer in the 60s. On the last day of filming, Michael comes over and gives me a big hug and sincerely apologizes for any bad behavior. And then he hands me a gift. I open it up, and it's a Stanislavski book on acting. And taped to the front cover was a small paintbrush for fine touches. "The king is dead, but long live the king." After the film wrapped, I went right into editing, and it was a nightmare. A lot of the scenes just weren't working. I knew I saw magic when I was directing it, but where was it now? My editor, John, said we need to make deeper cuts. And then the studio called asking when they could see the rough cut. Time was running out for me on my Directors Guild time schedule. I was running out of time. Then Stanley Clark wrote music cues that saved a lot of the scenes that I thought didn't work. I was over my editing schedule and Fox called.
"Robert, we have to see the movie now. No ifs, ands, or buts."
And we took the rough cut over to the Fox lot. When we got to the screening room, all the executives on the picture were there with Joe Roth, along with a new face, an editor that Joe trusted named Paul Hirsch. He had edited some big movies like Footloose and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and 2 of the Star Wars movies. They went into the screening room while I stayed in the hallway pacing as they watched the film. Then I had a thought. Were they going to take my movie away from me and have Paul recut it? Was I about to lose my movie? After the screening was over, Joe came out, and he had a smile on his face. He said, "You've made a great movie, Townsend, but it's too long. If you cut about 20 minutes, this film will be a classic." Now he was speaking my language. They handed me a list of their suggested cuts. I agreed right away to some cuts. And of course, the first thing they wanted me to cut was the scene with my little sister. And I pleaded with Joe. "Joe, it's going to be an audience favorite. Joe, it works. Joe," and then the executive jumps in.
But it has nothing to do with the 5 heartbeats. Nothing to do with the 5 heartbeats. You could cut it. And the other scene you should cut is a church scene. And you can recut the ending and put some voiceover on the end of it and tie everything up nice.
And I was like, no, no, no. You can't cut the church scene. That's where Eddie gets saved.
Saved? What do you mean he gets saved?
He got saved. I mean, God worked in his life and turned him around. I could see this was going nowhere. And then Joe stepped in. "We're going to have a test screening of the film in Pasadena. You can keep the scenes in for the test screening. If they don't work and the crowd doesn't respond, you got to cut them." My heart was racing. This could change my whole film, but I felt Joe was being fair, so I agreed to it. It was Wednesday night in Pasadena, and I was about to have my first test screening. It was in one of those art theaters on Colorado Street in Old Town, Pasadena. They told me that I couldn't come into the theater until the movie started, because if anyone saw me, it could prejudice their opinion of the film, and that wouldn't be good for the test. I totally understood, and I went across the street and waited in my car, watching people go into the theater. 10 minutes later, they signaled that it was okay for me to go in. As I walked into the back of the theater, the audience was quiet, just watching the film. A couple of moments that were supposed to be funny didn't get laughs. I was so nervous my palms started sweating. As the film continued to play, the audience started to get into it more and more, cheering and laughing. I looked over at the executives and they were all stone-faced, like, this reaction doesn't mean anything until we see the cards. Let me explain the cards. At the test screening, a test person comes out after the film and hands a questionnaire to the audience to answer. Did you like the movie? Would you recommend the movie? Who's your favorite character? What's your favorite scene? What didn't you like? What scene did you hate? The movie ended to big applause, hoots, and yells. I raced out of the theater and into my car. I just sat there thinking if the audience didn't like the movie, it would be recut, and I'd have the heart cut out of my film. I just prayed and put it all in God's hands. I sat in my car for almost an hour. Then I saw people leaving the theater. Once they were all gone, someone signaled for me to come in. When I got into the theater lobby, I could see Joe, executives, my manager standing there. The head of the testing company hands copies of the results to Joe and his executives. As they read the results, their faces burst into smiles. It's one of the highest testing movies in Fox's history. And one of the audience's favorite scenes is the scene with the little sister. The executive that was giving me a hard time comes over and congratulates me.
They love the sister scene. We should put it in the trailer. And we should have her promote the film too.
But the highest testing scene is the scene in the church. And then the executive says,
they love the church scene with Eddie. They loved it because he got saved.
Robert had talked so much about trying to make history, trying to do a movie with 5 black men as leads, and that, you know, the people were really going to identify with this because there hadn't been a situation like this before.
Me and Michael were sitting next to each other, And I just remember the part where we're in the church and I Feel Like Going On came on. And we just grabbed each other's hands like that, like, oh my God, this is a great scene.
I have never been more proud of a project, but also a friend, because I thought, I'm sitting there watching and I'm like, wow, he really put his foot in this. I mean, there was moments in the movie that I looked and I said, this is a perfect scene.
I remember walking out of might have been here in LA, of a theater, having seen it, and being moved by it, but not knowing if my response or reaction to it was biased or was in some way overly subjective. So I was more interested really in what other people were responding to and sort of being overwhelmed by the fact that, you know, this is my first significant role on film, in my opinion, and that I was part of it and that I was proud of it, but I didn't have a chance really to digest it. And so it wasn't until 3 or 4 more viewings that I was able really to appreciate how accomplished a film it actually was.
After that, Fox pulled out all the stops and spent money to market the film. Everything was first class.
The PR tour for the 5 Heartbeats was amazing. I mean, it was like maybe nothing that I had experienced ever before, and in some ways, ever since.
And I felt like a rock star. It was great. Like, we were met in every city by like a contingent of people.
They put us on a private jet, flying us from city to city to promote the film.
And it was amazing because they would screen the movie, and then when the movie went dark on the stage, we'd be standing there for the audience, and they would just lose their mind.
And the marketing department came up with the perfect promotional hook. The 5 Heartbeats would play celebrity basketball games in top markets against 5 DJs from the top radio stations.
I didn't get enough shots.
Because I was carrying y'all.
We had a ball. In Chicago, the Dells came out along with R&B icon Jerry Butler, the Iceman. Harry was working as a school teacher in Chicago before he was cast in the film. As part of the promotion, Fox set up a day at that school in honor of Harry. At night, we went to the Chicago Bulls game. Fox set it up so that Tressa could sing the national anthem before the game. She was awesome, but she went on a little too long, riffing and riffing. I mean, she was just a kid enjoying the moment. But then I felt someone staring at me, and I saw Roger Ebert, the film critic, looking at me like, Robert, do something. Then I felt other eyes staring at me, and it was Michael Jordan. He was looking at me like, when is she gonna be done? I'm trying to get 50 tonight. Tressa finished the song with the crowd giving her a standing ovation. As we started to screen the movie, celebrities began to reach out. I got a large gift basket from Janet Jackson.
We were doing the Soul Train Music Awards, and I saw Bruno Mars, who I loved. This is several years ago now. And he caught my eye, caught his eye, and he said, man, I just want to tell you, I grew up watching this movie. It is my inspiration, even to this day.
And there's this big tree of a man sticking out from the crowd, it's Shaq. And, you know, he's looking down, he's signing autographs and stuff. I'll see you. I'll see you. I'll see you.
Eddie Murphy loves 5 Heartbeats. Will Smith loves 5 Heartbeats.
I remember shortly after the movie came out, I don't even know what airport it was, but I saw Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson saw me, he was like, Leon, come over here. And he was like, 5 Heartbeats, man. Yo, that movie, man, I loved it. He said, I cried. He said, I cried twice, right? And I said, Mike, that's cool, man, that's cool. And I started to walk away because I had to catch my plane. He grabbed me hard, pulled me close and said, and you better not tell nobody.
Then I get a call from Whitney Houston, and she says she made a mistake and wishes she could have been in the film. I'm on cloud 9. Everything is going right. So, what could go wrong? What could go wrong?
I went to see a movie, and I don't know what movie it was, but I was sitting in the theater, and the trailer for the 5 Heartbeats came up. And I looked at it, and I said to myself at the end of the trailer, if I didn't know what this movie was, would I go see it? And I honestly answered to myself, no, I would not go see that movie. It was a bunch of guys singing and dancing, and it was boring. And I thought to myself, we're in trouble, because that's not what this movie's about.
People want to see conflict, you know, they want to see, you know, a story. And the 5 Heartbeats had all of that. But public didn't know that because that's not what was in the trailer.
Back then, that was the one thing that we struggled with, was we could get the movie made, but then when it was time to distribute the movie, everything was like a 70s, you know, exploitation film. It was like there was no story. It would just be images of things that made no sense. And you just sat there going, why would they think that people would come to see this?
And I just remember that feeling of them snatching the movie, and instead of us growing in the amount of theaters, they shrunk it. And I just had this feeling. And my agent at the time told me, don't expect too much from this movie. It's not going to do that well. And I was like, what? Like, I couldn't believe he would even say that. And I just remember the months that followed, there was this darkness in me, and people would come up and say, man, they did y'all wrong, man. That whole first year, it was almost like, man, that was a great movie, man. They did y'all wrong, man. They did y'all wrong. And I took on this defeat inside of me, because I expected it to be up there with Boys in the Hood and New Jack City and everything.
Though the marketing was off, another black movie did have an effect on my film, New Jack City. New Jack City had just opened, and there was a shooting in a theater, and it made national headlines and caused quite a panic in the Hollywood community. There weren't that many films for black people in the first place, and a shooting in a theater just wasn't good for business. Fox was doing a wonderful job, but then I think somewhere along the way, they decided to pull back on any edge in the trailer or marketing materials. So when all the trailers went out, the movie looked soft. So on March 28th, 1991, we opened. As the numbers started to come in on that Friday, I got a call from the head of marketing at Fox, Tom Sherrick.
Robert, the film is not working. Nobody is coming to see it. The theaters are empty.
I didn't know what to say. The film died that weekend. And then the next week, we went into emergency mode trying to save the film. We went on BET to try and reach the audience one more time, but nothing was happening. If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
But I'm in a city right now where people can't see the movie. Why isn't it in wide release?
It opened really wide, but a lot of people, because they saw the trailer, and some people said the trailer was soft, but then some people didn't support the film at all, and so that was a problem. So now they've yanked it out a lot of theaters, so this might be our last weekend.
But I think this movie was great, and this is the kind of movie that black people need to see.
Anytime we do something that is not the norm, if I don't portray a crack dealer or a pimp, everybody says, well, that's not real. A lot of people gave me negative criticism because it's the first time they had ever seen black men bonded.
When you got a film like The 5 Heartbeats and the people don't come out and support it, then you're sending a message to Hollywood saying, well, we don't want to see ourselves in positive roles. So the roles aren't going to exist. They're not going to be there. So there's no answer for that unless you people come out and, make your vote at the box office.
Months later, I was at home in a deep sleep and the phone rings in the middle of the night. I look at the clock and it's 3:33 in the morning. Time of angels. Half asleep, I say, "Who is this?" The voice says,
Did you hear the news?
"Who is this?
Did you hear the news?
Who is this?"
It's Mike. David Ruffin died today.
I just got real quiet in my spirit. Then Mike says,
They say it was drugs. Guess you couldn't save the real Eddie Kane. We should go to the funeral, Rob, and honor him. He inspired your journey to make our film.
and he did. He truly did. The funeral was at Aretha Franklin's father's church. It was a circus outside the church. Hundreds of people standing around and looking lost, just mourning the death of King David. As I viewed the body, a lifetime of childhood memories raced through my brain. Then meeting David that time, I took a moment and prayed for his soul. The service was a beautiful celebration of David. Stevie sang, and Minister Farrakhan did the eulogy. But Melvin Franklin of the Temptations touched me the most as he spoke. First, there were 5, and now there's only 3. We're gonna miss you, King David. And then he started to hum My Girl, and the whole church started to clap along. And then one by one, the Temptations, old and new, started to sing My Girl. It was a sight to see. Michael and I both had tears streaming down our faces. What a beautiful homegoing. I heard people talking that they didn't have enough money to bury him properly. On the plane ride home, I decided that I was going to put together a benefit concert to pay for the funeral. I reached out to Stevie Wonder, Gladys Knight, Dionne Warwick, Howard Hewitt, and they all said yes. I also invited Tressa and Howard Johnson and the Dells to perform on the show. I called the #1 radio station in LA back then, 92.3 The Beat, and asked them to help me promote the benefit concert. The program director, Michael Stratford, said yes. And let me say thank you to him again. He allowed me to be on that radio station for 6 hours straight with his DJs to promote the concert. We sold it out in 6 hours. The next day was a concert, and it was a powerful night of music, celebrating the legacy of David Ruffin. We gave his family a big check, and we sent King David home in style. The story could end right here, right? But then something funny happened.
I was driving down La Cienega Boulevard, my girlfriend in the car, and I'm driving, and she said, "Those guys trying to get your attention." So I said, "What guys?" And I'm driving. She said, "Those guys over there." So I look over, and there's 2 black men in the car, and the passenger does like this. He says, and I looked at him, and I said, "What?" And he almost got angry. It's like, and then I realized what he was talking about. He gave the 5 Heartbeats the thumbs up.
It was released on home video. That's when people who didn't bootleg it, of course, saw the 5 Heartbeats. And it just took on a life of its own.
This white kid comes up to me and says, "Hey man, love your work, blah, 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 blah." And I'm thinking he's gonna say, I don't know what I'm thinking, but I don't think he's gonna say 5 Heartbeats. And he says, "Man, the 5 Heartbeats, that's my thing right there, man. That's my movie." And in that moment, I had to give up that this was a black movie. I had to surrender that thought and realize that it's a movie for anybody who enjoys it.
5 Heartbeats has become a classic, so, you know, that's the reward.
I think more than any other theme, that black men loving black men, however complicated that may be, is a good and beautiful thing that they don't have to shoot each other or kill each other, that they can, you know, they can work it out in another way, I think is something hoped for, and that we long for those kinds of messages in film.
My favorite scene in that movie is the last scene. And I think intrinsically, especially black people, understand how important that movie is. Because we don't see black men get along in hardly any movies that we see. But here you have 5 black men who have gone through all their ups and downs, who have fought and been mad at each other, but at the end of the day, they had a picnic together, and they do this. And not only that, their women stayed with them. That's the most dynamic thing about that movie to me.
Then one day everything came into perspective. God sent me a gift, a reminder of why I'm supposed to do what I'm doing. I was having lunch by myself at a small outdoor cafe. I was lost in my thoughts, thinking about what I wanted to do next. Then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed this street dude staring at me. He was staring at me hard. I knew he recognized me, but I was still just trying to enjoy my quiet time. I looked up at him. A big smile came across his face, and he quickly strolled over.
Oh, snap. You Robert Townsend. Yeah, you Robert Townsend. Oh, snap, Robert Townsend.
He grabbed my hand and did some cool handshake, slapping hands, twisting fingers, snapping my fingers.
You out here eating lunch by yourself? You ain't got no bodyguard or nothing?
Then he walks around me and shakes his head in disbelief.
I like everything you do. Even my grandmother likes you.
And then he takes a beat and just stares at me.
They probably don't show you no love because you about that integrity. Your movies will always be on that other level. That's why I mess with you, Robert Townsend.
He paces around me and gets more excited as he talks.
You know what your best movie is? Your best movie? Your best movie? Your best movie?
I was exhausted. Okay, please.
5 Heartbeats. Man, I know every scene in that movie. When you and your little sister was dancing. When Big Red hung homeboy out the window. My office hours are. I know you didn't make a whole lot of money on that movie because I was the only one in the theater. When I saw that movie, I was strung out on heroin. True story. I was feeling nice.
He shows me what he was doing. He smacks his arm like a heroin junkie looking for a vein.
I thought the lead singer, Eddie, was dead because on the radio it said he was shot. But then, I saw him in the church, singing, I Feel Like Going On. And I said, if God could work in his life, I knew God could work in my life. That's the day I got off of heroin, Mr. Townsend. True story. I'm a drug counselor now, Mr. Townsend, and we show that movie to everybody. It's been helping a bunch of people get off that stuff. You might not have won an Oscar for that joint, but it's worth more. Keep your head up, Robert Townsend.
I watched him walk away with the biggest smile on his face. I thought about what he said. I received the gift. As an artist, movies and television shows can truly make a difference in people's lives. And as I continue on my path, my work does matter. This documentary is dedicated to all the singing groups of the 60s that supplied the soundtrack to my soul. I got nothing but love for you, baby.